Hi guys, my name's Bonnie. This week for TE 448 we will be talking about the book Every Day by David Levithan, and I really liked this book. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my favorite parts and read some quotes and talk about why I like them so much. One of the biggest reasons I really like this book was its discussion of gender and sexuality. Right off the bat, you know that the main character, A, doesn't identify as male or female because A spends every day in a different body, regardless of what gender or how the body identifies. So I thought that was really cool because even if you're someone who thinks of love and relationships and gender roles in a way that society tends to think of those things, this book will really challenge that. Especially how it talks about A falling in love with Rhiannon, but referencing times in the past that A has fallen in love with, I think they said his name was Brennan, so someone of a different gender. So you can kind of start out the book knowing that A doesn't identify in these ways and kind of figure out what that means and how that changes the way that A lives. I really liked the part where they discussed the character Vic, who is transgender, and A talks about how they can really relate to that. So on page 254, there was a quote that really stuck with me about this. It says, "There are few things harder than being born into the wrong body. I had to deal with it a lot when I was growing up, but only for a day, before I became so adaptable, so acquiescent to the way my life worked. I would resist some of the transitions. I loved having long hair and would resent it when I woke up to find my long hair was gone. There were days I felt like a girl and days I felt like a boy, and those days wouldn't always correspond with the body I was in. I still believed everyone when they said I had to be one or the other. Nobody was telling me a different story, and I was too young to think for myself. I had to learn that when it came to gender, I was both and neither. It was an awful thing to be betrayed by your body, and it's lonely because you feel like you can't talk about it. You feel it's something between you and the body. You feel it's a battle you will never win. And yet you fight day after day, and it wears you down. Even if you try to ignore it, the energy it takes to ignore it will exhaust you." So I really like that quote. Personally, I can't relate to that experience, but I think that it taught me a lot more about it. And I think that this type of relationship with Rhiannon, especially when A was Vic, was really interesting to see into her character. I think that she had a really hard time dealing with this. Even when she's talking to Vic, she keeps referring to him as a female. She says things like, what if her girlfriend was planning a huge surprise party for her? So even though something as simple as a pronoun kind of may not seem like a big deal to Rhiannon, that does kind of show that she's not really comfortable with the idea of there being different genders. So I really liked how this book discussed gender roles and expectations and stuff like that. And even though I consider myself fairly open-minded about these ideas, this book was constantly challenging me to think about them in different ways and think about A as not having a specific sex or gender. Another quote, really quickly, I want to talk about that I really liked was when A talks about religion and human experience. And sorry, it's kind of long. I'm going to read most of the page because I thought it gave really good insight into ideas about difference. So it says, page 77, it says, "I have been to many religious services over the years. Each one I go to only reinforces my general impression that religions have much more in common than they like to admit. The beliefs are almost always the same. It's just that the histories are different. Everybody wants to believe in a higher power. Everybody wants to belong to something bigger than themselves, and everybody wants company in doing that. They want there to be a force of good on earth, and they want an incentive to be a part of that force. They want to be able to prove their belief and their belonging through their rituals and devotion. They want to touch the enormity. It's only in the finer points that it gets complicated and contentious. The ability to realize that no matter what our religion or gender or race or geographic background, we have about 98% in common with each other. Yes, the differences between male and female are biological, but if you look at biology as a matter of percentage, there aren't a whole lot of things that are different. Race is different purely as a social construction, not as an inherent difference. And religion, whether you believe in God or Yahweh or Allah or something else, odds are at heart you want the same things. For whatever reason, we like to focus on the 2% that's different, and most of the conflict in the world comes from that. The only way I can navigate through my life is because of the 98% that every life has in common. So I really liked that quote. I liked how it talked about how even though a lot of people like to focus on the differences between people, we really do have more in common than we like to think, and A gets to experience that every day. Just kind of to wrap up, I really liked how the book talked about difference in general, and it kind of shared a lot of different experiences, obviously, with being with a different person every day, or as a different person every day. I try to keep a little list. I'm sure I'm missing some, but here are some of the things that the book talked about. Weight and body image, loss and grief, gender and sexual orientation, obviously, relationships, which is something that every character deals with, health and abilities like the broken foot or diabetes, mental health, which we see with the girl who is suicidal, poverty, drug addiction, alcohol abuse, religion, sex, illegal immigration, and mental and academic abilities. So I really liked that it's such a huge list of things that A gets to experience, and we as the reader get to experience along with A. And I think that any reader who reads this book, although they will witness a lot of things that aren't part of their experience, I think that they definitely can see parts of themselves in this book and part of their experience reflected. So that's why I really like this book, and I really look forward to discussing it and hearing what you all think. Thanks.